Jonam no Chanju Bordo Dane Joso Che Daye Jensu Yebe Jonam de Rono Benche Sanje Drogo Rensho Sanje Judon Soji Jonam no Chanju Bordo Dane Joso Che Daye Jensu Yebe Jonam de Rono Benche Sanje Drogo Sanje Judon Soji Jonam no Chanju Bordo Dane Joso Che Daye Jensu Yebe Jonam Rola Benje Sanje Rubar Sho. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I take refuge until I attain enlightenment. Through the merit of practicing generosity and so on, may I attain Buddhahood for all the sentient beings. 먼저 송로군은 다음에 교상 토론을 좀 제외주부 특징적인 sense 신이 주나 차트 뭐 so I think we are on the verse number 37. 다 간제 요모 원규르베 너도 니장 쇠제바 대제 다신 대제 대다 신률라 니 니미치바 지들주 verse number 37, please.
If, when under the influence of disturbing conceptions, people will even kill their treasured selves, how can they be expected not to cause harm to the bodies of other living beings?
다디 미시베기 더 subject 지원도 준비 되려도와 미시베기 장양 쇠나 셴을 넣어버쳐봐 어저를 쳐봐 어저를 쳐봐 세치 인지 subject는 컨디션
if through sort of misunderstanding or not knowing, if they even take their own lives, it would there's no amazement that they would not harm others.
어디 디르샤 아니 디르샤가 소리
Oh, sorry. Rinpoche says actually, if they will take their own lives under the effects of misunderstanding or ignorance, then it's no surprise at all that they would harm others.
어디래도 다디 도스지지 라면 오면 줘. 다 계산 딩을이야. 디지에 탄다. 다 subject 페이지 도시지 다 뒤쪽단다 준준하는 뭐 용해야지 아니 subject이 다 싸워도 마소네 다 닝부디 가졌으나 닝지기 탑질 치수로 와
거기
닝지 단다 뒤쪽 저기 신규 수로 내가 잡아대 아니 규진 상황진 법들이 코로나랑 요마래 아니 디간래 코로나를 내가 잡아요나 아니 미션을 내가 잡아지 아니 지금 디 얌생야다 아니 지금 로리아 취 모두들이 제고야면 누송이 로저도 상말로 subject야 프로세스 과도도서나 아니 닝지 탑이 닝지계 탑이야. 네. 이 송들도와.
So if we sort of boil down all of the, here, for instance, when we've been talking about, others harming oneself, and then that sort of coming out, that stemming out of other causes and conditions, and therefore the fact that they have no self-control, and when they're harming others. So if people out of those kind of conditions will harm themselves, then it's absolutely no surprise at all that they would also harm others. If we boil the main points which are being spoken about here down into containing them into one kind of main outline, then that would be the sort of development of methods for us to develop compassion for those who are harming.
죄송합니다. 딱 단두스신 뒤도 다든다 셜가 디기 다디 남샤 준도 아주 삼보 코다 그러고 예배선으로 지레 배낭아란 쪽이 아니 저기 뇨몬비 샤만 손치 다 된지가 삼보 코르투요 말했대 이나야 아니 저기 피기 콘도스 사베 까블이야 미션바도 콘도스 사베 간다 코로나 기우메 차거든 아주 신기요 봐 미 파종어 소소히 기우메 본다 신 파종어디 기부 요르스 랍투 말 파종어디 기부 요 말스 랍투 아주 봐 다 드린 제 야고시 때 좀 초보 야고시 때 중스는 가와 곰드니 하람 공부를 지르 봐 예. 제장가 대인도 선배 라신이가로야 기우메 버지 콘도디 수고요래 대인도 선배다 단다디 개치슈 등은 좀 삼로 가르코고도서나 뇨모 온규르베세티다 등은 저기다 이 식디 난게다 내가 치슈르티 관계체 주주고랑 지나는 거 삼다입니다 관계체 뇨몽기 원도 규베이나 그러와 아니 rani nöbet chebata shenla nöbet chebata ro samaro hendore keji ke maristi diagodo
so
di samlo kortobi na di tada ningu dirishata.
So the essence of what's being spoken about here, if we're particularly speaking in relation to this verse number 37 that we've just read, and so or ourselves or others, when we come when getting angry and coming under, so there's a very important thing that we can relate to, is that we can now sort of relate to or understand the fact that under the influence and control of something other than themselves, the mental afflictions, there's nobody in this situation that's happy. Neither the person who commits the harm or the person receiving the harm, of course, is not happy, and the person committing the harm is not happy. It's very rare that you would find someone who will say, "Oh, I had a really great argument or a really great fight. I did some really great harm." It's very rare. It's very unusual, and so you find both parties to be under the cause of the influence of the anger. Both parties are unhappy with what's happened. So the main point for us to understand is that not being under the control of the negative emotions. This is the situation that arises, and in the Tibetan it uses the word kangise, which in here, in English it just comes out as if, when under the, so when under, at this time, at the time when one has come one has come under the control of the mental afflictions, then it's harming both. It's no surprise that that at this time, when under the influence of mental afflictions, that there's harm caused both to oneself and to others. And this is the essential sort of point to take away from this verse.
제제 대다 신뢰라 에네미치바 제대로 줄었어. 소소 삼르스타운디 베나 간사 파르 보시면 되게 소 네바게 원도 점베 간사 다가랑게 소소소소를 미시베 몽베 왕게 소소를 내게바 딘데 먹고 주죠레스. 그봐?
말
미시비 몽베 왕게 소소 랑니를 내게 망부 시비지요 알았어.
Yeah.
딘디지 예 차비 슈골라 아니 미 셴발을 내가 깨야 되다 가르쳐 그래. 만약에 대 투그를 배세요. 그렇지. 대도와 님미치 버지 들주로세. 그 소소소소 짜치슈레스. 짜치 전부리는 짜치슈도 소소라니래.
Yeah.
소소라니리야 미시비 몽베옹게 내게비나.
Yeah.
아니 미 셴발이야 내게바다 내 마게바 컨텐츠 대투그를 했어요. 그렇지.
Yeah. So then again, the lines 2, 3, and 4 from verse 37. So people will even kill their treasured selves. How can they be expected not to cause harm to the bodies of other living beings? And so, the person who's the other person who's harming is doing out of a complete, a complete situation of misunderstanding, kind of ignorance and misunderstanding. And they're misunderstanding the fact that they're causing great harm and faults accruing to themselves. And it's absolutely no surprise at all that if a person under the influence, at this time, misunderstand, because ignorant of all of these kind of faults, is prepared to harm even their own selves, of one who is, in a sense, thought how we all think of ourselves as being the most important and and therefore the thing that's most dear to us, ourselves. If they're prepared to engage in actions which harm themselves, then it's almost impossible to imagine that they can remain without also causing harm to others.
So here from today, looking at this verse number 37, it is more likely to be saying it looks like that if somebody is trying to harm you, and then or somebody harming you already, and then in your mind it should be more like, of course they have to harm me. This is one good practice, accepting. So normally we people, they wanted to practice giving and taking samarbe, tonglen practice.
Yeah, the practice of giving and taking. Yeah.
But here, before starting the tonglen practice, I think this practice should be. This is a preliminary practice. Otherwise, taking all the sufferings of the sentient being is far, far away. So it's right now, it is the practice of accepting the reality. So what is the reality? Here, I think it is saying people who is harming us, they are doing it by the influence of under the influence of disturbing conceptions.
Yeah.
Conceptions.
Mental afflictions or disturbing emotions, right?
Or disturbing emotions. So if it is this kind of the way of thinking, this ignorance mind is really, really harming the person himself, then harming other is secondary, because the person, everyone loves them, and attachment toward yourself is it is the most precious thing in the world is I. whether the person accept like, oh, I'm the most important or like that or not, but directly, indirectly, you are the important. That's why I'm saying if your teacher is important, that is because you are important. If the Buddha is important, because you are important. Because we have this kind of a strong attachment. That's why our faith becomes attachment, our love becomes attachment, everything becomes, whatever we touch, it becomes poison. And then we don't know, sometimes when the confusion comes in the mind, then you say, I'm doing practice for such a long time, but really these practices are not helping me much. I think somewhere there you have to differentiate the attachment, and then maybe better to say in a Tibetan. 저상가 개체슈디 레뉴 시완전 세야디 레다 뉴무비 시완전레 세야들 삼범하고 땅지 라니 레뉴 시완전 차네 내가 가지고 두자치고도 야부치고도 야부 가지고 제 토금에도 봐 두자 가지고 치고도 데니디 이어가지고 치 레뉴 시완전이 디부르 봐 내가 아주 통주요 봐 용주요 봐 초주요 봐 주디레 레뉴레 디기 원의 중바 디 주다 깬 디기 원의 중비기 말한저다 그 가서래 디기 르바서래 디기 잉세래 디기 디부세래 땅 알아줘야 셈모게고 영야다 아니 이 마데버 영야다 아니 지가서래 담미시고 뭐 지용돼 정말로 레뉴 기간데 차송 디삼당 거들이 당부디 디 레다 녀메 온기 중버디 가로 라치 최사나 아니 디 곰지 템비 겐기 랑신기 미심기 소소를 내 게네 콘도 람사마 사야디 콘도 마사야디 용그레 생거도 가전스나 레다 녀무 상완체리 실라도 잠베 아주마 손에 크기 체란을 옛날 게에디 코란의 견도 전에 말이 미심바지기 콜이야 꾸마 미심바지기 콜이야 deceive seduced 제네 저란의 뇌게브레 슬라비나 콜 콘로사야티 또스 총을 친네 랑싱기 크기 WB기 미들이야 콘로사야지 딜리기도와 디가르센스나 그 잡라 force influence 되는데라 랑싱 파가지고 놓고도 뭐 된대징 아주 소토에 정보이나 닝지 마게베이나야 간사 콘도사 콘 소소야 네베징년들이야 닝지 마게나야 랑싱기 셈나로야 콜이야 지 마가제 줘봐 셰타관에 마가제디 고도 고투부두스 가진스나 베디킹하지 제랄이야 뇌경경이 미디 제랄로 슈비지 뇌경 기뉴트네 말이 가진스나 콜라미 셴바지기 딱 벽에 나로 뚝싱스라고 봐. 다시 뚝싱 잡레스 라드 코다 카요 말이 코 빠펫 잡레스 가서 인지게를 빠펫 쓰르바 빠펫 디 탁바강리야 두스타지 지 아니 거르게 줘봐. 어디 잡으셨어? 라나? 아니 랑싱기 항상 인플루언스 되년들이야. 아니 고 세미나로야. 마가 차야질리도 와. 어디데 더비징 안 좋다. 레뉴 샤만진 세야들라. nen데 사모다에 개심부지 되는 러브도 성부도.
So in thinking about being under the sway or the influence of the others, other causes and conditions, these karma and mental afflictions, then if we imagine how, if we just look, directly manifest, this is something that we can manifestly relate to and see in our own lives. If you think under the sway of all those mental afflictions and karma, how many good activities or good work, good positive things we haven't done, how many negative things we've engaged in. This is something that we can really see how the causes and conditions, under the causes and conditions, the sway of the mental afflictions. This is something we can see very easily, and how our body and mind are uncomfortable and unhappy, how many enemies we can create by being under the influence of this. Now, if we can sort of start to see that and a kind of acclimate to that fact, to get used to that fact, and then develop a habit of seeing that is the case, then naturally when others harm us, we'll also be able to see that others that will have a sort of natural, with that cultivating that habit of seeing that way, will allow us to see that the others are becoming under the sway of the negative emotions. And it's almost like the other person has been deceived or seduced by something else, let's say. And so our anger towards that person will naturally reduce. We're not necessarily talking here about developing compassion for them, but we're talking about a sense where our anger toward our sort of a feeling of dislike towards them and reduces a little bit. So you can imagine, for instance, if you find out that somebody gets angry with you or harms you, but you find out that behind that person is another person who's been encouraging them and influencing them to harm you, then automatically we're not talking about compassion here, but automatically, to some extent, you're the target of your dislike, let's say, or your dislike will shift from the direct person who's harming you a little bit to the one who's behind it. So it's a kind of natural process when we understand this. So, and in the same way with a puppet show, if there's another person behind the puppet. So if so that when we understand that, then the kind of puppeteer or the person who's influencing or kind of seducing them behind the scenes, so to speak, naturally our dislike will kind of shift from the one who is directly harming us to the one, the influencer, the puppeteer behind the show. That is a kind of natural process when we get used to this habit of understanding that this harm comes under the sway, under the other powered, under the sway of mental afflictions and karma.
Tela 닝제 차워 리바스 땅 아주 많으네 닝지기 싸워 죽서럽디 다 닝지기 싸워 죽서럽디 다 티쇼라 같이셔 숨주 섭게 받디 더 38째 묘문 깨베스 대답을 다서라서 슈발라 닝지 야라마제나 초월을 줘봐 지터지 38 please.
Even if I cannot develop compassion for all such people who through the arisal of disturbing conceptions set out to try and kill me and so forth, the last thing I should do is to become angry with them.
In here, in English translation, my English is terrible, so I cannot change that. But as far as my opinion, my understanding is, if I cannot develop, it shouldn't be there. I cannot. This is really at the moment is like discouraging. So here it should be more like 제상가 딜라도와 닝지 갸라 마제나양 세치 디 투든슈 타베나도
In the other translation,
예
in the other translation, it says in the Padmakara translation, it says even if compassion does not rise in us.
even if 디에틱도 간제 디 약쇼디 가르고도스나
Yeah.
닝지 디 갸라마제 시두점베 갸마제 시두점베 닝지 마손에 탐제 샘젠 탐제 계절 마셰베 양시 디 권나야고요.
Yeah.
더 제장가 니엘이야 직제 rumba치는 더베나 당부디 뇽몽 깨베 대답을 다 제장가 닝지마제 응어라 레뉴 상한진 임바디 세부 시부진이 많이나 용 투구메버데 낸덴치는 송도와 디 제심부 시발라 디 상하지 송차비 쇼리야 가르송도스는 뇽몽 깨베 대답을 레다 뇽몽비 상한진 깨베 가사되기 대답을 세도 다 니엘이야 소소소소 내가 게다고 송바데 다 다소라서 슈발라 다소라서 슈발라 소소소소를 내가 제당 다지기 소소 소고 온볼이야 네게버네 송데 아니 딘디기 기부디스 다 기부디 수천 월슬랍데 샘제 탐제기지 캠하야체 니엘이야 소소 다 저런 정말로 연애면 가실이 지리 안 소소 띵난로네 또 지금 미드 톤도 세미나로 모티베이션다 그게 민지 폰도 세미나로 때 마대 차야 된다 유시 어떤데 여변 다디 캐용 거 디드는 수 캐용 다디 드는데 샤제로 코 국계당 거 말와 깨당은 용 말에 다코 드는리야 아니 샘기 봐 가르치고 란조마 손에 명어로 샤르주지 당아 주는비 곰들이 잡을까야 아니 이기 셰비 송년티야 샤르주고 그러와 이시기 송년티 이기 셰비기 송년 샤르주고는 신 소소고 있다 니도 가서 소소고 있다 마가세기 미디기 아니 디 튼지도 맞아도 샤르주지 와 샤르주지 디제 강사디 더딘데 강사디 단다 지단의 심전이 상계인 등아주 여제도마 대인에 단당 알아줘 콘도서서 땡디 가르쳐고 있으나 심전이 뭐 시샤하시는 고 콘도사고 있고 아주 콘도서서티 디점에 다 딘데 강사디 아니 콜롱 알아 롱땡 거야 콩 알아 쉬고야 콩 알아 통중체 거야 라소버 간대지 자원이 뭐 제시하고 있나요 디제 상마로 코랑 미시베 몽베옹이 제바 미시베 몽베옹이 제바 마세 코랑레야 말라네 마게베 이나야 코랑레야 지금 깨와 통마 매번에 단다게 봐도 소소소소도 네 깨바 장례되바 딘디지기 강사 되라 딱 거기 깨와 통마 매번 단다봐도 쓰도 거기 그 꼴로 차상 삼모 당송 당아 좀만 손에 investigating 거기 가르사 the background 차상 제기 지르다 그러봐 깨와 뒤자마리 깨와 녀만 손도 단답하도 그 오늘 자제 자네 자다 뭐 100% he has harmed himself she has harmed herself thank you 그러봐 뒤지 시원도 선배 다 닝지 자라 마제나 시두점베 덴데기 아니 지금 콜이야 베 닝지 전부 좀 지게시다 아주 니레스 라나 지금에도 크기 덴데기 동행디 엔타 매버데 녀서고세기 지기 캐나데 마충부이나요 그러와 당아주 닝지 나로를 셰베가려야 단다 거쳐올 뛰어와 학삼 제뉴기 닝지세지
맞아요
그리고 아주 뒤에면가 등기 나로네 가르 투버베 투버드베 학삼세들 봐 나바다 투버 다 지기 딘지기 닝지 신부지 아주 마제나야 닝지 자라 마제나세디 단다 닝지 계지 지고면지 닝지 자친부지 파 마제나야 초월 주부 지터지 수도 콜라파 뇌내제다 오늘 전에 삼로 야고 코버이나 뇌내제 삼로 거랑 게임을 씹선로 지세지
so this is a parler the contre parler
콜이야 파롱땡기 삼로 다큐니 게임을 씹도 지세지
yeah
가전스나 고 라와멘도스
yeah
是吧第一对准备还콜이야 펜토고스는 닝지도 마제바 이나야 콜은 뇌게 삼로다 말레고니 손을 지세지 초주부 지터지스 타직세디 타직세디 인지민지 셈나로 녀고래 송주였다디 어디 배 계속 좀 시월라기가 좀 손에 다 하이라이트 잡고 요나처럼 디간을 따고를 송주였다 디간을 잡고 가전서나 디 인지 첨부지 계색이 시드차되어 왔다 어디 땅 아주마 손에 파운데이션 더 인지 첨부 맞지 응어야 파운데이션 랑고는 더 디네 랑고를 송었다 여러분 초월 주고 지터직 세대 터직 세대 도난 제거보다 디 당아래 송었다 터직 세대 어디 진행 주다
so taking verse 38 here so we're not talking about here it's not it talks in the first line it says even if I cannot develop compassion for all such people. I'll just read the other one actually, it might help more even if compassion does not arise in us then for such people who through the arisal of disturbing a conception set out to try and kill me and so forth. So here we're not talking about all sentient beings. We're talking very specifically about those sentient beings which are under the at the moment under the sway of strong karma and mental afflictions, and the people like that who are attempting to harming us, who are looking down on us, who are speaking bad words about us. So we're taking that person as that kind of person who's under the sway of the mental afflictions and karma, and who is sort of committing some kind of negative action towards us. We're taking that kind of person, and what we do is so we're not taking, it's not, in this particular instance, we're not taking all sentient beings as the kind of referential object, and we sort of we bring them in front of us. So it doesn't mean we literally have to invite them into our house or whatever, or invite them. It means that we bring them to mind, in the way that we in the way that we do meditation, when we bring kind of visual forms to mind in our minds. We kind of bring visual images. So we in the same way we do that. We bring them in front of us, and we take and so we kind of conceptually imagine them in front of us, and we of course we don't actually know. In reality, we don't know whether another person is actually a sentient being or a Buddha, but here we're for sure the main kind of focal object or reference point is a sentient being, although actually in reality we don't know who or what they actually are. And then we think of them in the sort of harms, the denigration, the kind of looking down on us, the physical or other forms of harm that they cause to us, and we understand that all comes from their ignorance, from their kind of misunderstanding of misunderstanding, let's say, and ignorance, and that they're under the sway of these things. And this is actually that kind, the person, we also go back in there, kind of check, is kind of like investigating their background. But what I mean to say by that is that you can guarantee that from beginningless time, they have under the sway of kind of ignorance and misunderstanding, they have created countless, done countless negative actions which have caused uncountable amounts of harm to themselves. So this should this should be an opportunity for us to develop kind of strong compassion, that, or all imagining with this person in front of us all of that suffering that is accrued to them because of the kind of negative actions such as harm that they've caused, and we would see all of that, sort of imagine all of the suffering that they must have accrued from beginningless time, and feel the sense that we want to sort of step in to clear that away, to help remove that suffering. So this is sort of quite similar to in the 7 points of cause and effect for developing the bodhicitta. The fifth step is great compassion, and then the sixth one is called hlasam, so special intent or special altruistic intention. So it's something, because it's conjoined with this sense of us wishing to step in and actually do something about it, you could say that it's kind of related to hlasam
dinu sidu zambe hlasam gi nubad chu yong tuechi danda hlasam gi juru ba ningji chibu nyen ge hlasam shugul gi yor ba chezanga hlasam ge tsabe shugula ta denji gi ningji chimbu de tabe chanju gu semlo panjo ya de den kya chab ru chiru ba chezanga di hlasam gi nubad de ba chezanga ningji chimbu di dunje menga dunge nangi ningji chimbu khari chu korsina hlasam ya de gi nubad kro ya chang de ju yor ta.
So in very specifically in the 7 points cause and effect for generating bodhicitta, the great compassion that we speak about here is a very particular kind of great compassion. It's the great compassion which then has the which then draws on this special altruistic intent, and so and with that great compassion as the cause of the altruistic intent, then it's 100% guaranteed that then that special kind of altruistic intent will then lead on to developing bodhicitta. So it's a very specific kind of compassion that's being taught. The compassion where you see the suffering that the sentient being is accrued to themselves, and really stepping in and wishing to take responsibility and to help for that. But in the verse here, it's also saying, when it says the last thing I should do is to become angry with them. So it may be that initially strong compassion does not arise, but it's what it's saying is that even if strong compassion doesn't arise in me, even if it's not possible at this time for strong compassion to arise in me, but for sure the last thing I should do is to become angry with them. So and why? Because they are out of control. They're out of control under the sway of their mental afflictions, and so even if you're not able to help them too much, at least you're preventing yourself from harming them. And we need to, and so Rinpoche said the last line in Tibetan, it doesn't really come across in the English very well, but the last line in Tibetan says, Ji tasik. This is something like, you should highlight, this is an important thing. This is almost like a kind of personal instruction to say that this is, I'll just check the other translation. We can at least know it doesn't come across in it, but it's a kind of like a damcha draw, might be Rinpoche. Tasik, ji tasik.
Ji tasik se di tonan che wa re se che tonda chigla. Chigla karsona di dambe sik se da di inji minji kechim chegor da se di da geshem bu shibala gi be shibuji nganzo le be da ji laja ma sone mangbu da che mangbu yo de ine di da be 내가 친구를 다 se di. So
the Bodhisattva Shantideva is really So this ji tasik, the tasik has two kind of meanings. One is that this is something that you really need to pay attention to, but also it's almost like amongst all the advice that I've been giving you, this is highlighting this particular argument and saying that this is very important for you to pay special attention to. So that's how the Tibetan is being used. This is like Rinpoche Anson said at the end, this is like a foundation, and it's almost like a kind of personal, we call them dhamma, personal or oral instruction to you, like an exhortation to you to really pay attention to this.
I think I'm saying this because this is the foundation of the compassion, because the anger is if we can say, anger is the real the destroyer of the compassion, if you can say that. And then here, this particularly verse number 38, from 36, 37, 38, then here conclusion. If you look at the 38 once again, it's saying, even I cannot do compassion for such people who through the erasal of disturbing conceptions, so he's putting all this picture or the example into it. And then Shantideva is saying, even though if you cannot bring a great compassion, which is saying that that I will the one who will get rid of the suffering of others, even we don't have this kind of a compassion yet, but then okay, the mata imbe ingi dida chigme sechi. Tachisan digi samlo nalo ne ani chezanga ganchugi pema thona ne meki se tatsawadini le.
So this really brings in this sort of exhortation that we hear a lot in the teachings. Even if you can't be a benefit at the present, at least don't harm. And so this is the absolute limit. What's been spoken of here is the absolute bottom. The lowest limit is don't get angry in response. Even if you're not able to be of benefit, at least don't harm. Don't retaliate or don't harm back.
So for like attachment and the compassion, it looks like it is on the kind of the same track. It's really deceiving. We cannot sometimes difficult to differentiate between these two, right? But anger and attachment, that's the way it works very differently, even though attachment is behind there. So then for that reason, we have to read the logic from what Shantideva from beginning is saying, that if there is hatred, or hatred is a very strong word. If it is, if you have the person who is the object of our anger, and then on there is no way to build a foundation to bring a compassion on that person. No way. Actually, it destroys the seed, the seed, or the if there's a chances to bring the good connection with him, but it will really destroy. So for that reason, this one becomes the foundation the way the Shantideva is giving us this the importance or the more very profound and with the logic, with the examples. So Shantideva is so kind to give us this very special instruction, saying this is the foundation of the compassion. So please think, maybe I might be exaggerating a little bit there, but it's in your hand. You don't need to believe me whatever it's coming from my mouth. So you do a little bit investigation and then think whether it is the way it is, what I'm saying. Okay, 다 수고 봐. 다 드려도 봐. 다 저기 주가 봐. 다 제가 there is a connection. If we make a connection with the verse number 38 and 39, okay, before talking about 39, the outline sort of it, the content sort of it, the subject,
the textual outline, yeah, the textual outline.
the 가르쳐나 초위 중 가봐 슬라도와. Now the person, when student of, if we are really good student of Shantideva, and then automatically when we go through the verse number 36, 37, and then 38, automatically the question should be rise in our brain or the head or mind, the saying, is there a way to stop now the cause of the anger? So 제가 주어들은 슈글레 레요. Okay, did you that to do that? Verse number 39. Please look at it. Kedi shenla checheba 집어넣기 정신나 텔라 초아 미리디 세괴 정신 매근 다스 39.
Even if it were the nature of the childish to cause harm to other beings, it would still be incorrect to be angry with them, for this would be like begrudging fire for having the nature to burn.
But this particularly verse number 39 is specifically for the people like me and who are really the beginners. Okay, first, we don't know much about the force or the influence of the past karma, past lives karma. It's too big to understand. It's so profound and so sometimes complicated to think. So here, this particular advice, it is normally we say when people get into fight, then if you have a very good friend near you, and then he will say, don't fight with the people who are drunk. Okay, so and person in Tibetan we have a saying, if you bring a fight with the person who is a crazy and you yourself is a crazy. So we have saying something like that. I don't know if the way I'm saying it's correct way, but anyway, we have same kind of saying like this. So here also verse number 39, if you look at it, so 딱바 특송공 있으면 야고요. 딜라. 딱바 특송서는 인지나 그럴라 그래.
theoretically speaking.
Theoretically right. 어디 제상가 딱 특수공기 있다. 개대 란주부터 세미나로야. 심 딩네 파종을 셴발량원도 좀 다 셴바 말로스 랍투에 커버쳐도. 랑싱기 삼로 가르당 거스라나 당부디 땅아줘 로디 당부디 아주마 손에 타 진징으로 도세 지금 아주냐만 요바 타 찍도 진 답에 코 독자를 콜레야 두가 요마르 삼모딜레디 갑라타 타 진징으로 쳐봐 타 찍도 진 봐. 다 디메바 쇠발라 아니 다고 중앙 교고 요나레 팅규 교고 찍고 봐 좀진 교고 봐. 다디 다 진진디 가야 된다려야 아니 신에 딱바 터숭 원기 개대 크기 정신 코란려야 에너지야다 말을 너버제디 그 정신 접지인비나 아니 캐란텔려야 파 늘렌치버디 캐란 고거레스 가르전스나 그 정신 레스 캐란 사무 크르기도 왔어 지단에 그 정신 레스 말에 이나야 저랑 타제 사수스 그 정신이었어. 그 정신이나 아니 콜리아 늘렌체베이나 캐란 아니 삼로 총의 견레스. 베나 메시우지 차고 유에 가블이야. 아니 차고 매와 하고 보고 춘춘럽지나 아니 당보 메디 지기도 하고 통도 라고 창식을 엔테네 치고도 잠베 테네 송데 땅에 메라라고 마찬가지 somebody league was 가진스나 네 사신 세버디 메이런 신인버디 보고 춘춘에 하고 디나신 아란주인 베이나 딱 콘로서링케 요 말이스 파종을 콘로서링케 요 말 가진스나 코용을 내베게버디 코레 정신리샤스 재산 디인도 잡에 거기 콜은 내내지면데 어디 삼어 코레야 네 랍제 잡단치로 봐 따고 터숭 어디 키랑 디 마이크 디 뮤트하시
오래다. 카츠음데. This is a sort of argument here that's being presented in a kind of theoretical way. It's not the actual reality, but it's but at the time when we're very locked on to ways of thinking, where we have wrong views which are completely convinced that things are one particular way, and for instance, this is a really evil or very bad person, and our kind of wrong view is completely locked on to them. And at that point, we need to sort of, we want to try and convince that way of thinking that it's wrong, but you can't come at it directly initially. So what you do is produce a kind of theoretical argument as to how it might not be that way. And so what you do, kind of skillful way. So what you do here is to say to what this verse is saying is, if that person is, if it's the nature of that person to if it's their nature to be like to be harmful, if being harmful is that person's actual nature, then it's stupid of you and you've decided that person's nature is to be harmful, then it's stupid for you to retaliate in any way, because it's their very nature. You can't do anything about it. And an example that's used in the so then it says, even if it were the nature of the child is to cause harm to other beings, it would still be incorrect to get angry with them. And then at the bottom, the last line, it says, for this would be like begrudging fire, or having the nature to burn. So, in the same way, it's stupid of you to get angry and retaliate back to the harm of this person, because it's their very nature, and you've decided that it's their very nature. For instance, if you have a very hot fire, a child initially, without knowing, will stick their hand into the fire and then realize, that the hand will get burnt, and they and then they will realize that the nature of the fire is kind of burning and hot. That's the nature of the fire, and they won't do it again. So a small child knows this. So in the same way, there's no way for us to get angry with that, or to retaliate or get angry with back to that other person that's causing us the harm, because if you accept that it's their very nature to be harmful, then it's stupid of you to retaliate. And so this is the advice that Shantideva is giving us here in this verse.
Okay.
So we just do one more verse.
Da when de se gyun de lubur 심진 정신 대반은 원아 토아 메리데 컬러 두두 комп신 세치 verse number 40.
And even if the fault were temporary, and they who are by nature reliable, it would still be incorrect to be angry, for this would be like begrudging space for allowing smoke to arise in it.
So what do you think the comparatively to in our case, the verse number 39 or 40, which is likely to be more kind of a beneficial way of thinking? That is the question. Okay. So in my case, this is also can be your homework too, because for my case, 13, it looks like 39 is more kind of I'm feeling like more beneficial because verse number 40, it is talking about because it's temporary. 루부와 레스 고아티 다디 가서 고통 루부 레스 랍도 잠베 마란조 삼로디 티린롱랑도 야 산이 톡부차도도 세 디디기 기자랑 렘도가 그래도와 쿨롱랑랑 디기도 세 기자데 렘도 그래봐 디당 아주 참에 렌잡 투를 다디 루부와 레샤 세 삼로디 디나로라야 제베나로 주다 and this 심진기 정신人民都是 타마추나 당부디 타마추나 니버디 삼로걸리 말 제장가 안조 당부디 축축 쉽죠 딱 당부디 까야게 탑시들이야 가르치고도 심진기 정신 말에 세 타쳐 심진기 정신 말에 세트 달루부레샤 세딜렌데 투르 가야레 뎀바 마레 슬랍투 아니 주마레 세데 신랍투도 디나신 타지도 디지기 삼로당 거기 너버티버디 그 정신이 요마레 세디 타 최고요 어디 타 최저쇼다 어느 루타 루부레샤 세드 쳔베 아니 셈나로 또 루부이나 아니 나 콘도 사야도 콘도 사고 누 콘도 운에 사야도 가르스나 야 다란자 팔로지 가진스나 콘도 사서 코르미도스 니 콘도 사고 상운에디 콘도 사서 운에 유여비나 거기 다 겨울을 묻히기 남 최준도 만들어 숨분한 신체 강사다 차원이리야 예와지지 강사들이 차원들이 예와지 강사라 콘도 사그메 차와라 콘도 세고르베 아니 잡주치네 딱 콘도스에 특대 타고 잡아 예 과연스나 거기 자원 연받들이야 니 동련치기 과연스나 자원 연받이 말래 요래 콜래 요래 좀 딱딱 딜루보르 강사 코라 다 디기 삼로 날 지난 중에 공부시 강사 코랑게 렁신리 슈요 말이 세두점베 란저기 뇌기 킹기 강사 세티 뇌기 킹기 강사 세두 동반이 삼로로 스탄지 당하라죠 뇌기 킹기 강사 세두 타직도 비기니 코랑기 뇌기니 강사 세지 여러 배스는 디요 말에 세티 전다 딘디지 리기도 메도 좋아 랑신 지난 랑신 여러 말에 세디 그기 랑신도와 나로를 지 수비나로 여러시 계제도 멤시 셈나로를 걸지 여러시 계제 멤시 랑신 고란스도 가사 신인지 비기는 뇌기긴 그 도도지 간절도 구디니 손럽지 간절 여러 배스 자원인 요마스 디타 취해라 아니 아주 마소네다 다든 제ben이시 제시 그들이스 그들이 제네 아니 지금 란주 마소네 동번이 때는 파고 전에 다든 제니 니주메버 중국가 니주메 메버 갑라야 니 마니베디 모자르치에 말해 마니베 슈데라 다 디디기에디 아니 루브를 때는 중샤 아주 마소네 마 동반이 시작원도 전에 코랑은의 민두 랑은의 매비 좀진 디기 땡진 저버 좀 있거네 중부디 띵부도 세워 나신체제 간사스닌디 아주 내게 킹기 코랑의 뭐니 그거네 민두 알아 단다 내게 용야디 유진 루부월 때는 중조르시 봐 당부디기 니버디 삼로탄야라야 등아 주 띵중기 남샷 라고지기 지금 신치도 세죠 공부시나 셈을 펜치려도 디지랑도 공부시해야 돼요 로볼라 심진 정신 대변나 원한 초아메리티 아니 칼라 두두 컴버신 시도 말아서 계신 기부 저거 삼나 아니 남실로 콘도사도 남과로 콘도사도 봐 남사 드링 남 탕마도 슬럽도 잡에 자와지요 남사 timba 나고치 도스레 온도 참베 남사 timba 나고로 콘도사도 남 동발 콘도사도 남 동발 콘도사에 개민도 와스 왜냐면 timba 나고도 통원도 가도 콘도사에 고쪽도 스타 어디 가는 timba 나고도 루부 어들 콘도사버마도 아니 남과 코로나 콘도사에 개민도 와스 그렇지
right. So in relation to this verse number 40, even if the fault were temporary, if they who are by nature reliable, it would be incorrect. It'd still be incorrect to be angry, for this would be like begrudging for allowing a space for allowing smoke to rise in it. And so here we have to understand in the Tibetan the word is lobua. It means it's something like adventitious, so it's not continually there. So it's you know, when we're thinking about our enemies, you know, so it's in the commentary here we're talking, so in the first two lines where it says even if the fault were temporary, if they who are by nature reliable, so it's saying that it's not first of all, in order to understand that something is adventitious, then you have to actually understand, first of all, there's a process here, the verse before it where we're talking about whether let's say, you know, harmful intent is in the nature of that sentient being. If you haven't decided that it's not in the nature of the sentient being, then you can't decide that something is adventitious or you know, temporary. So the first one has to be decided. First of all, you have to decide that it's not in their nature, and then if it's not in their nature, then you can understand it to be sort of adventitious. So it goes in that sequence. So if, for instance, if you in order to decide that something is false, first of all, initially you have to understand that something is not true, and then after that you understand that it's false. And so, you know, that sort of one-pointed sense, that sort of real convinced sense that that it's not in their nature, and then on the basis of that, then you can really decide that it's adventitious. and that it's not in the nature of them, and therefore it's adventitious. And here also, His Holiness mentions many times and how to deal with it. So you sort of, it's not it's not really in their nature. It's not always there. So His Holiness gives us the advice of dividing up a situation like this into let's say the harmful action, the person who is harming, and the action of harming. And so we don't. They're not. So the person is not always is not always. The person is not always performing negative or harmful actions. So therefore, we don't get. We ourselves and the other person both at times perform negative actions. So we don't. So by dividing it up, we don't get angry with the person. We don't retaliate to the person, but we think of the action itself as the thing that's causing the real harm. So then we think that. So then it's not in the nature of the person who is currently harming us. It's not in their nature to be continually harmful. There's no person who's just there's no situation where somebody is literally just sort of sat there 100% of the time just waiting to dish out harm and punishment all the time. It's not like this. We can also examine this in a little bit. It's not meditation on emptiness, but a sense in which we sort of analyze when we're thinking about emptiness, and in the way that we can look at the other person in a kind of similar way that we check emptiness and we search for the person. When we search for the person within the aggregates of the person, we don't find them. But before we don't find them, there's a sense that there's a before an actual kind of definitive understanding that we haven't found them, there's still a sense that we're kind of like we're not going to find them. So, for instance, in terms of looking to see if the person is it of their nature to always harm, then as we start to check to check that, we already start to understand that kind of harmful intent is kind of adventitious in some way. It's kind of it comes and goes. It's not there all the time. The way that we investigate emptiness, looking to see whether things exist from their own side or not, and we use the reason of dependent relation or dependent arising in order to understand that things don't exist from their own side. So in the same way, is the harm always there? Does the harm always exist from its own side or not? And we can start to see that we don't find that to be the case, and therefore we can see that is adventitious. So this is a kind of coarse or a little bit gross understanding of dependent relation, but it's of tremendous benefit in helping our minds. And in the last line of verse 40, where it says, "For this would be like begrudging space for allowing to smoke to arise." Now, I'll give you another analogy. If you're going on a holiday, you're going on a holiday to enjoy yourself.
Picnic. That's a picnic.
Oh, a picnic. Okay,
picnic.
Yes, a picnic, and the weather is, do you get angry with the weather, or do you get angry with the sky? Do you get, if you go on a picnic and suddenly dark clouds appear on the horizon, it's not the clear sky that you get angry with, or you get frustrated with. It's the clouds that are coming, and it's the clouds which are adventitious are the thing that you are upset with, and it's not the sky that you're upset with. So because
kansa korang ngajo lunglang sagi shidi ani lunglang sagi shidi kansa ga ngalo neba jeson sidu zembe then never the give it to consult be troll do us.
Yeah.
간사 코로나를 톤에 대고 오면 도스 다 톤나 가르쳐나 간사게 자와들을 태우고 그랬어야지.
So then in the same way we can sort of differentiate up, the person, this person who has become the object of our dislike or our, almost like our hatred or dislike, the person who is causing us harm. So then using the similar kind of reasoning, we can say that if we get angry with anything, we certainly don't get angry with the person, because it's not in their nature to be harmful, but we could say that you get angry or frustrated with the action itself, the action of harm itself, which is the lobowarela, so this is adventitious. The action is adventitious, so that you might get frustrated with in the same way that you would get frustrated with the clouds in the sky, and you don't get frustrated with the sky itself.
So now please for your own kind of meditation practice, this way of Shantideva's giving the logics and reasons, apply these logics and reasons without the help of the emptiness. Try to meditate on that one. Second, try to bring this with the logic and the reasons of there is no inherently existence of the enemy. Give all the reasons and the logics that that you have learned from your teacher or listened from His Holiness, and then through these two different methods, two different understandings will be there. If there's no differences, then something is wrong. But if not, you can feel the two differences. One, sometimes the logics and the reasons without the help of emptiness, or with the help of the understanding of the emptiness, sometimes both can be samre ani chesanga demetobeki ani rikbeki samotangche takdense kansa seniti never taking kansa se the kwaldo never king kentu same se the kwaldo se on to jambe demegi kebardo chene samotandachi ya tanda di ngosu tanda 제스침부 시발라기 데메기 개발 만자네 송셔죠 되기 삼르니라 카리 펜도치야 삼르직 펜도치야를 삼르 셴바데 펜도시라 맵슨 거죠 이나양 디 삼로도 꼬르답지 그래서 디치란주 이지미지 공부지 시토나.
So there, so there are two kind of ways that we can approach this, as I've mentioned to you. One is where we sort of bring in the context of the lack of true existence, and so where is the searching for the harmful person? Where is that harmful person? Searching for the mind that harms, the harmful mind. Where is that harmful mind? So this is, but this is contained within the context of the lack of true existence, or as is sort of presented manifestly here in the text, more directly here in Shantideva's text, the methods which we've just talked about here, which is a method which is not manifestly conjoined with the understanding of the lack of inherent existence of the person or the person. So take a look at these, go around through both of these reasons, and see which of the see which one is which one you find to be most beneficial, or but have a sort of go around working through the reasons for both of them and see what you find in terms of which you find to be most beneficial.
That 얘기 삼주체비나 저장가 ran 쪽에 단데 계속 신부시월라 숨어다시 제제 아니 레다니 뭐 비샤만제제 아니 때네 코란 네 기기도 아주를 네 개버데 배 충중레샤 코란 네 개버도 로 무스바 삼바당 이제 ran 쪽이 아 독스적지 메로 간사스니 네버티니 간사데 델샤 네버티 킹기 간사 델샤 아니 때네 딜리아 디오마레 레뉴 샤완지레 아니 주단견 데네 코도 투스코 슝버레 아니 코란 네 개버도 슬라드 셈베 셈나로레야 오 다 간사다 차완이들로 와치도 섬에 섬로 딜 때네 아주 거린 닝지지에지 용치 와 다 섬로 니버데 단다 데메토비 쉐럴 때네도 스테온도 셈베 다 딘데식 섬로 땅바 있나 당동양 니 닝지기 젤 마소네 용 좀도 가진스나 된다 저 그래서 그래서 그래 다와차베 반덴 다와차베기 우모주고는 숨은 신치치 닝지들 계당들 릭만저 숨도 닝지마소네 계당 숨도 심전 잠라 명인지 대단다가 좀 먹어치 다단다 미다버스는 철미비 닝지 세서럽시 철미비 닝지 세야디 좀전도 레뉴 상황전다 지도 시도담베 철미비 닝지랑 또 채야지 다게 지슈디 가르르도스나 민면미비 닝지 세야디 민면미비 닝지디 마제베이나 아주 강사 랑외는 주베 강사 알로 롱랑행기 강사 디텔샤 아니 코카요 말에 코디요 말에 코투요 말에 슬라두셈비 네갑직라 만조르야 지 랑싱기 콩르뉴아 인닝지게 코코비 여바 강시라 풀라 템부메바 야니마지 켄지 튀온도 셈베 야코 미디기 세디 신이 양지 파종원 네버징이스니 강사디 야코 주lem야지 딱 단다 데메토비 셔럽기 남주 젤도 된 준조비나 아니 강사를 민니 아니 단다 그죠 민멜미비 닝지 세디 제원도 전배 아니 아주 오늘 전에다 그소래 뇌기식이 시 알아 뇌기킹기 강사 세기 아니 배 자원에 프란다지 되게 루부어지마도 랑싱기 민두세 삼로됐다 루부다 랑싱세티 다디 편도 첨부시 매로 삼 다디가 참잖아 야 계속 좀 시발라다 반전 다와 차고니 냠도 차례 나야기 관주 고급지 제비나 셈나로라 다디 그도디 지금 매로 삼고도 도시 지난주 공부 싫어나
So please take the following to mind very carefully. From my way of thinking, for us, thinking the way that Shantideva is presenting it here, where we discuss how the person is the person is harming us under the sway of this is one way of thinking about how to reduce our anger. To the person is under the sway of mental afflictions and karma, and we sort of we take we draw to mind this harmful person, we place them here in front of us, we draw them to mind, and we think about about the how under these other powered under the causes, other forms of causes and conditions, how this the person is under that sway, and then it may be possible for us to develop our compassion in this context by being able to separate out the sense of the person harming and the action of harming. I think on this basis, it is perhaps possible to do that. But then if we come to the sense of developing compassion in the context of the lack of true existence of phenomena, and in Chandrakirti's Entering the Middle Way, he mentions three different kinds of compassion, and particularly three different methods, or actually I like to say three different methods of developing compassions. So one is referencing merely referencing sentient beings. That's how it's called. The second one is called Chulamigmin, referencing or focusing on phenomena. And in this one, it uses reasons like the sentient beings are impermanent or empty of a substantially self-sufficient, substantially existent self. And I think on that level, you can join that form of that second form of compassion, the compassion referencing or focusing on phenomena, into this what's been spoken about here in Shantideva about being under the sway, the arguments such as being under the sway of karma and causes and conditions. But then the third form of compassion mentioned in Chandrakirti is the non-referential compassion, which is developed in relationship to understanding the sentient beings to be lacking in inherent nature and lacking existence from their own side. And so we think of, and it's this form of compassion is cultivated with that understanding that in this case, sentient beings lack existence from their own side. Now, I think on the basis of the first method, which is being presented here directly in the text, I think, definitely in the short term, it can help to reduce our anger or retaliation, anger or retaliation, and increase our compassion. But I think in the long term, it's difficult for it to benefit us in the long term, because all it takes is for a certain set of causes and conditions to arise, and then I think it's possible for our sort of harm, our retaliation or harmful intent to the other person to arise. If we develop it in relation to the reason that with non-referential compassion, that the person who is harming us, the person that we have brought to mind, it doesn't exist from their own side, it doesn't truly exist, then it's almost like you take away a kind of foundation, or you take away kind of the foundation or basis on which our kind of harmful retaliation arrives. And so and because you understand that they lack kind of intrinsic nature, then necessarily you're also going to understand that that these kind of the harm, etc., is an adventitious thing. It's a temporary or adventitious thing and doesn't exist inherently. And so so what I want you to try and do is to be able to sort of conjoin and work together with both of these aspects, the one that's presented in Shantideva's text here, and also what's presented in Chandrakirti's, and draw them both to mind and use them to kind of mutually work together with both of them. I think that would be very important for you to do.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. And Simon, thank you very much. Dedication, Chambachambela, dedication, please.
Sure.
In English.
Yeah. So in the Essential Serkong group, the dedication prayers. Having thoroughly investigated in accord with all that I've heard, day and night, through the four reasonings, mind born of reflection on these topics of contemplation, may this discernment sever all doubts. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of the grounds and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri who knows reality and just like Sabantavadra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with a dedication praised as the best by all the gone beyond victorious ones of the 3 times in order to have good conduct. With my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you, Rinpoche.